You good? Good evening. I call to order this meeting of the Wendell Town Board of Commissioners and welcome you all here tonight. Thank you for coming. We're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Police Chief Bill Carter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our invocations from the Wendell Council of Churches. Tonight we're going to hear from Covenant Presbyterian Church, Bob Fleming. Good evening, Mr. Fleming. Thank you so much for being with us.
Our pastors had a previous engagement. I'm not Debbie. Okay.
I knew you weren't Debbie.
Okay, well, let's pray. Heavenly Father, as we gather together tonight, I appreciate the fact that we have people who are devoted to serving our town, many of them without any compensation, but who have the best interest of our town and its residents. Be with us as we meet. Give each one of us the insights and wisdom to make the correct decisions, and may we all go home in support of decisions made and in support of our town. May we ask these blessings in your name. Amen.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have a public comment period. We have 3 signed up. When I call your name, you come up to the podium and you have 3 minutes or less, but you have a total of 3 minutes. The first is Joe DeLoach.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. I am here again. I was here last year. Joe DeLoach, 1704 Drift Falls Lane, here in Wendell.
Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm an ambassador for the Chamber. Again, I did this last year. My wife is actually the outgoing president, so she's counted down those days. 13 days ago, she was not the president anymore. That is Petey Edwards. So I spoke to Petey on the way here this evening just to let him know that I would get up and speak on behalf of the Chamber again. Just thanking the town, the Public Works staff, Brian Bray and his crew, Chief Carter, Wendell Police Department, and Chief Staples and the Wendell Fire Department. So very much appreciated. The 92nd Annual Harvest Festival went off without a hitch. We had lots of changes this year. Those changes went well. We had booths on Main Street for the first time. We had a change in the parade route for the first time. And again, lots of positive feedback. We feel confident that the changes went off well, and we appreciate the town's assistance in that. And again, we just wanted to thank the Public Works. Last year, they were actually being recognized for something when I was up here, so it was easy to turn and thank them. But hopefully you'll pass along that message to them. So mark your calendar next year. We're going to go ahead and tell you, October the 3rd, 2020, first Saturday in October, 93rd Annual Harvest Festival. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our second is Brandon Honeycutt.
That's close, Madam Mayor.
Well, your handwriting is difficult to read.
And I was helping out the young ladies right here. Yes. But, yes, ma'am. You'll be next, ma'am. If that's okay, you go ahead. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm speaking English, but I'm having difficulty hearing with my old ears.
I think,
He's going to go first, Ms. Johnson. You're good. Stay right there. No, you wait. You wait just a moment.
apologize
You're
for my
fine.
handwriting there. With that said, Braxton Honeycutt, 1020 Groveview Wind here in Wendell. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, as eloquent as Joe DeLoach just was, I think you forgot one thing, Joe DeLoach. That's the hardest working man in Wendell as far as I'm concerned. He did a great job. He doesn't ask for the thanks. He doesn't really look for that, but I thought it would be nice to come up and have someone finally say, hey, Joe, you do a heck of a job and thank you. Thank you.
And the last one is Georgia Johnson. Now, yes, ma'am, it's your turn.
Hi. In our time in Wendell, he's always been a very thoughtful resource. Let me take a moment to praise him for being so good to us in years past and our residents in Wendell. Very thoughtful, very special young man. And I have a husband, but this is in the old traditional way where people used to give each other praise and it was understood. My name is Georgia Johnson, 2420 Wendell Boulevard. And the reason I'm here this evening is we have a condition on the highway in front of our house that's very annoying and difficult, and we have not had any success with DOT in repairing it. They've been nice, they've been considerate, they've listened, but there have been no results. And many utility vehicles pass, and they make a terrible noise, and it's I feel, and my neighbor with me feel like if we presented the issue to you, that maybe you could get some results and get it repaired. It seems to be relatively simple, but in no way are we getting any results. And it's noisy and it's annoying, and particularly for my neighbor, it shakes her house. Trust me, it needs some attention. And hopefully the presence here and presenting it to you, you know some kind of resource or method which can get it done. It's more in front of her residents than mine, but it's very, very annoying. And hopefully presenting the issue to you people tonight, you will find some resource or know what to do to resolve it and let us have some peace. It's been ongoing for quite some time. And if you want to question me in any way, that's possible. But please, amongst all of you, how many people here, I can't count. Anyway, hopefully my presenting our problem to you and the annoyance of it and the difficulty and hardship it puts on the quality of our life, you will feel like you can do something about it. And I thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am, thank you so much.
And may I say this, I watch you on television and I enjoy. And you're such a beautiful lady and surrounded by all these handsome young men. I envy you.
Well, thank you.
God bless you all.
Kind.
Thank you. And one last thought, I'm a very spiritual person. And I'm glad you begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening to me. And
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
And once again, David, I don't mean to embarrass you, but you haven't seen me lately. You're probably glad, I don't know. But in any case, you are always exceptional treatment to myself and my husband, and thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 4, recognitions, reports, and presentations. We're going to hear from the League of Women Voters, Cheryl Tung and Diana Nguyen. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Cheryl Tung. I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Wake County, along with League President Diana Nguyen. We are a nonpartisan political organization working to encourage active participation in government. On August 22nd, the League hosted its annual Women's Equality Day reception in commemoration of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which acknowledged women's right to vote. That evening, we recognized all women currently elected to state and county offices, to city and town councils within Wake County, and to the judiciary. We had the pleasure of honoring Mayor Virginia Gray But because Mayor Gray was unable to attend, I believe she was here, we are here to present her with the certificate of appreciation that she would have received that evening. The certificate reads as follows: The League of Women Voters of Wake County presents the certificate to Mayor Virginia Gray for her public service and in celebration of Women's Equality Day. On behalf of the League, I'd like to thank you for your service to the citizens of Wendell.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. No, I just took a picture beforehand with them. I always hate that those ladies are very kind to come and see me here and there, and when they meet, we're always in here, and I can't miss one of these meetings for that, so I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much. Item 4B. Is the recognition of National Community Planning Month. And I think is this me? The American Planners Association recognizes October as National Community Planning Month. In 2019, the theme for the month is Planning for Infrastructure that Benefits All, to highlight how well-planned infrastructure projects strengthen community, boost the economy, expand opportunities, and promote equitable development. The proclamation recognizes the efforts of the town board, citizen planners, and professional staff for advancing community planning efforts past and present. The efforts this year include the 2019 strategic plan, the budget that contains a 5-year capital improvement plan, town hall design funding, downtown parking and event space, design build funding, park and recreation master plan, Wendell Boulevard sidewalk, known as a misprint, and comprehensive plan update funding. Such efforts, among others, represent an ongoing commitment to realize the goal of planning to maximize the health, safety, and economic well-being of all people living in Wendell. Some of our planning staff is here tonight, Mr. Coates, Mr. Bergmark, who's real popular tonight. I'm going to read you the proclamation. So the town of Wendell, proclamation declaring National Community Planning Month. Whereas planners work to improve the well-being of all people by working for safer, resilient, more equitable, and more prosperous communities. Whereas the American Planning Association encourages communities across the country to recognize October as National Community Planning Month. Whereas the 2019 Planning Month theme is Planning for Infrastructure that Benefits All. And whereas the town of Wendell actively supports well-planned infrastructure projects, strong communities, expanded economic opportunity, and equitable development for a positive quality of life. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed by the Honorable Mayor and Town Board of the Town of Wendell that the month of October 2019 be recognized as National Community Planning Month. Let it also be proclaimed that all citizens, businesses, and visitors in the Wendell community are urged to support and encourage quality planning to improve the well-being and quality of life for all, duly proclaimed this the 14th day of October 2019. So this is an opportunity that the town wanted to take to thank everybody. The citizens who stop us on the street and tell us things they'd like to see, our planning staff that works very, very, very hard, the rest of our staff who really plays a huge role in planning, even though they don't mean to. I see you all sitting back there smiling, and you do play that big role. So we wanted to just thank everybody and recognize how important this is for the town of Wendell. So thank you all very much. I think some of the things that we listed here earlier show how busy we've all been the last little bit, don't they? All right, item number 5 is public hearings, and we have none tonight. Item number 6, administrative items. Number 6A is the authorization to execute contract for design services for the Wendell Boulevard pedestrian project with Kimley Horn in the amount of $268,790.53. And we're going to hear from Mr. Bergmark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. I promise I did not time this to coincide with National Planning Month. So this is a Wanted to come before the board and update you on where we stand in terms of the Wendell Boulevard pedestrian project. This is something we've been trying to work on for some time, talked about for some time in different aspects in terms of past Safe Route to School efforts we've tried to pursue. This is an item that we addressed in our 2016 pedestrian plan and more recently in our 2019 strategic plan. So something that we've for a while recognized as a need to kind of bridge a pedestrian gap along Wendell Boulevard. The project would include nearly 2,000 linear feet of sidewalk going from essentially the Hanner Lane where the McDonald's is, down, linking back to Wendell Falls Parkway or back to the school. It would also include looking at closing off Wall Street at the intersection with Wendell Boulevard because it creates an unsafe turning motion with that additional connection there. Looking at signalization and improvements to the Wendell Boulevard and Wendell Falls Parkway intersection. And finally, looking at making some pedestrian improvements and modifications to Marshburn Road to make that a safer way to cross and change some of the traffic patterns there as well. So in July, the town board authorized the manager to enter into negotiations with Kimley Horn for design engineering to kind of begin this project. The right-of-way and construction would occur separately as separate lap submittals. The preliminary cost estimates that got put into the budget and incorporated into the town CIP included $185,000 for design and engineering work, as well as an additional $1.3 million for right-of-way and construction. Again, for those right-of-way and construction phases, we'd be looking to get some additional federal funding. Design work was appropriated in this year's budget, with the right-of-way and construction coming later. We now have, we've gotten further into the investigation. We have revised cost estimates provided by Kimley Horn that are higher than we initially anticipated. That's the reason for me coming before you tonight. We've kind of negotiated that with them and came to the figure of, for design and NEPA, which is that first stage, where we would not be doing that as part of the LAP project. We'd be doing that independently to then pursue LAP for the other two phases. The cost figure coming out to be just under $269,000, $268,790. Part of this is the design estimates were based on the total project estimate. So the total project estimate has gone up to $1.8 million for that right-of-way and construction phases. And again, it was kind of broken into two submittals, and that's a requirement to go through the LAP, kind of the procedural requirement through the LAP program. So we'd be looking at kind of the main pedestrian route connection from Hanner down to Wendell Falls Parkway approximately, or just shy of it, to Marshburn as being kind of the first submittal, and that would be competing for bike ped money. And then the second submittal, more focused on the Wendell Falls Parkway intersection, would be $769,000. That would be competing against other roadway projects. So you're looking at a almost $84,000 increase from that fall 2018 estimate. Again, it's partially due to higher right-of-way and utility relocation estimates, as well as just when you're going after those federal funds, kind of those processes that you have to go through, and the fact that we had to split this into two projects resulted in it being more expensive than we originally anticipated. So we're recommending the board to authorize the town manager to execute a contract for design services with Kimley Horn for this project in the amount specified, just under $269,000. The budget amendment will be officially reconciled at fiscal year end, and then we'd adjust the cost estimates for right-of-way and construction in future fiscal years as well. There would be just for your reference, a 20% local match required for those later phases going through the LAP process minimum. The current project schedule completes the design, right-of-way, and construction in July 2022. So again, I'm here before you to answer any questions you may have and ask if you'd be willing to dedicate some additional funding in this fiscal year to this project.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Bergmark? Comments?
Question. David, the blow-up that's in our packet, it's like free-flowing onto Marshburn and then no lefts out of Marshburn. Can you talk about the design process, and if that's something that the designers they've come up with, or that's the instruction that we've given to them? My fear is that, and I understand this portion, at least some of it was previously included in the budget, but closing roads and changing traffic patterns can sometimes be contentious, and I know we didn't have any public hearings tonight, but my fear is that we start down this road without fully understanding it, and the public not be as keen on our plan? Will there be time in the future for feedback on those? How does that work?
Sure, yeah, the design would come in phases, so we'd have an initial, just kind of more 25% design plan, that would come in early. We would have public involvement, some public input along the way, and then there'd be a later kind of a 90% design plan, so we definitely have room in there to make adjustments, based on input that we receive. This initial graphic is just kind of their initial thoughts. It is based on some of what staff has expressed, but, you know, their initial thoughts on what might be done to make that Marshburn Road a safer, you know, a safer crossing point for pedestrians. And it's been a sore point with getting safe access to the school, especially, is trying to get across Marshburn Road. And part of the reason why we haven't been able to get safe route to school money in the past is because even if we have that pedestrian connection, unless we make it a safe way for them to cross that intersection, we haven't truly created a safe route.
The other question was, you said, or I caught we pay this, or we put the money up front for phase one, and then I'm assuming they help walk us through steps 2 and 3 of the lab process?
So we've actually contracted with them to help prepare some of the information required for the lap submittal itself. Some of that's, you know, beyond my staff's ability to put together. So yes, they're already in the process of assisting that. The deadline for submitting the right-of-way and construction phases that we'd submit in one submittal phase is this October. There's only, I think, 2 little pieces left to put together. We held a pre-submittal meeting already with Campo, with DOT representatives. That's part of the reason why it waited until tonight to come before you for the cost adjustment, because we wanted to make sure that we didn't come to you with a figure, then meet with DOT and Campo and for that pre-submittal meeting, and then tell us something that really just threw a wrench in everything. If that answers the question.
David, you said you negotiated with Kimley Horn to the amount of $268,790. What was the initial bid?
I believe it was
320.
Yeah.
Was there a reduction of services in that, or just?
We clarified on the Marshburn Road that the solution would be within existing right-of-way and not require additional property or right-of-way acquisition at that location. And so that reduced some of the design, and then being able to do some of the lap application preparation outside of the design. It's just under contractual engineering services. I'll cut a little bit out. And then just talking through the scale and scope and timing on some of that. David worked with me. If you'd like to add any.
Yeah, I'll just add, there's also some kind of optional services that we may still want them to do in the future, but aren't required as part of this phase right now, with, you know, bid phase services kind of helping us with the bidding when we get to that point. Initially, they had that included in here. Again, we could always add it if we feel the need to.
We feel confident in the design and NEPA components that we need to be able to move forward in the lap process. That's the purpose on this. I will say that while this cost is a little higher, the impact on the actual construction is only about $60,000 to meet that 20% match. So if we're shifting more from a 30% match down to a 20% match, which affects a few points in the applications, it's only a $60,000 increase in construction at this point. So there's little impact on the construction cost, but we need to make sure that we have accurate design and environmental for a federal process.
Where do we plan to pull the $60,000?
For the capital, it would have to be adjusted in next year's capital budget as part of the budget development process.
Any other questions or comments?
Let's just
Go ahead.
clarify this.
Okay.
Planned money, it's not budgeted.
David, and just one more time for my clarification, when would so our match is at 20% for the project?
For the later phases, so
Later phases.
yeah, this phase right now for design and engineering, we're doing outside of lap.
And we do that all on our own, that's all?
Yeah, we're doing that on our own. it doesn't score as well, and plus we get bonus points if we have not received a lap approval within the last 5 years. And so by doing this part on our own, it then lets us get those bonus points on the real expensive part, which is the right-of-way and the construction. And the minimum on that is 20% local, although I will say it is a reimbursement program, so you're paying and then getting reimbursed but it is as you go along, you're getting reimbursed.
And your meetings with the representatives you had seemed to go well, I mean, as far as they're over looking at the project and everything?
They went real smooth. One advantage of working with Kimley Horn is that the person that used to work for DOT and be their contact for the LAP program now works for Kimley Horn and is now our contact essentially. So he's very intimately familiar. But yes, it was a good meeting.
And then just one more clarification, the sidewalks you have in this picture here, you have them running up, I guess that's the, the
Northeast
away from
side.
Town side, you call it east side, I don't know.
Some people say northeast, but yeah, northeast side of Wendell Boulevard.
Okay, not the fire station side, the other side, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Connecting where there's openings.
Okay.
That side had looked to have a lot less utility conflicts, so that's kind of what that was based on. We actually initially, we had some preliminary estimates for both sides, but that side appeared to be the more affordable route.
Okay, thank you, David.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the town manager to execute the contract for design services with Kimley and Horn in the amount of $268,790.53 for the Wendell Boulevard project.
All right, so we have a
Pedestrian
motion to authorize the town manager to execute the contract for design services. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, item 6B is the authorization to execute contracts for on-call engineering services with 2 firms, AMT and Withers and Ravenel. And we can continue with Mr. Bergmark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As stated, I'm here to ask for more authorization for the town manager to execute contracts for a master service agreement for on-call engineering services. Back in June, we issued an RFQ for on-call engineering services. Right now, AMT serves that purpose for the town, but we're having a lot of growing needs. We're looking at a lot more potential capital projects. We're making sure that we can scale that service to meet those needs. So we wanted to put out an RFQ, see what options we had, whether it's one or more firms, to see who could best serve the town in our growing and different needs. The needs for this could range from development plan review to field inspections to small capital projects. One big one was stormwater projects that we wanted to focus on, as well as just more general surveying, structural engineering, design, civil engineering projects. We had 6 vendors who submitted proposals that were reviewed by individually by our review committee members. Then a selection team met collectively to identify the top 2 firms to recommend to the manager. The firms that we came out of that group with recommending were AMT, or A. Morton Thomas Associates, as well as Withers and Ravenel. We then scheduled presentations on Friday, September 6th, for them to come in to kind of elaborate, receive questions from the selection team members. And following those presentations, we came out with a recommendation that both firms be contracted to perform different services more tailored to their individual strengths and capabilities. So AMT would, under the proposal, would be serving many of the same functions they are for us now, focusing more on development plan review, construction estimates, TIA reviews. We work with them on our annual PAL bill update that gets us state funding for road maintenance, reviewing bond estimates and doing field inspections. The Withers and Ravenel contract would be structured more broadly, but again, one of the main reasons why we looked at Withers and Ravenel was their strength in stormwater planning, which we have definite needs in that, but also as we get involved with these capital projects, looking that we might need their services, and if we needed additional services in some of those areas like field inspections that AMT is performing, we could pull them in as well. So the master service agreement would provide 12-month pricing. would fall within the appropriated funds in the FY20 budget. There'd be separate project agreements for specific larger projects, such as the stormwater engineering services. There'd be a separate kind of attachment to that master's agreement. So the master agreement would give all the general guidelines, governing rules for service, the rates, but then we'd have a separate approval for something like that. The engineering costs, anything that did exceed those appropriations in the adopted budget would come back before you, before we contract and commence services. This is a non-exclusive award though, so nothing in this stops us if we wanted to contract with another engineering firm for something from doing so. So we're here recommending authorization to enter final negotiations with these two firms, execute the agreements to contract AMT and Withers and Ravenel for on-call engineering. Be happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Bergmark?
Do you happen to know off the top the other 4 engineering firms that submitted proposal?
Who submitted? JMT, CSD Engineering, Ramey Kemp. Who am I leaving out?
McGill.
Oh, McGill and Associates, yes.
Any other questions or comments?
David, 2 questions. One, how does this differ from our relationship in the past with AMT? And then the second question is, what sort of cost savings are we achieving by having a 12-month versus, so somebody that works on a retainer, generally speaking?
So I mean, our term with the AMT is really expired with that contract, but it's not that different in terms of what we've done in the past with AMT. You would have a contract that would essentially agree to an hourly rate structure depending on which members of their team are performing functions. You're only being billed as they perform services. A lot of that, if it's development related, we're turning around and then billing the developer for the work that our engineer had to do, either doing field inspections or doing plan review or whatever it may be. So it's a similar structure. I don't think that the AMT contract last time, I don't think it was a 12-month pricing on that, but it's a similar contract, and the reason for looking at this is like I said, more based on we're having more needs now than we did before, more so than because we weren't satisfied or thought we needed to negotiate a better rate.
The amount of rules and regulations the town is becoming subject to has changed. The last engineering contract expired in 2015, the end of 2015. So our engineer was working month to month without a contract with an old fee schedule. So that started the process of updating that. What we want to make sure is that as the town is growing and projects come in, that our design engineer is still free to do that. But at the same time, Public Works needs an engineer to be able to work on stormwater compliance. The State Department of Environmental Quality is doing audits of all the local government's stormwater programs. Ours is in 2022. We're finishing up the stormwater mapping this year, but we have to develop that stormwater program and get it prepared for that state audit that's basically a year and a half out at this point. So we don't want to slow down the development reviews to shift over to doing sidewalk inventory and inspection, street inspection and inventory, and stormwater. We felt it better to have 2 separate entities working there, as there was nothing wrong with the job AMT was doing on design review on that side, but needing additional firepower, if you will, to handle the additional work. And if we have other projects, for instance, there's the design build out right now for the downtown parking and event space. Other firms can apply for that. These are just our go-to on-call engineers as needed.
Is there cost associated with being the on-call engineer?
The
mean, is
costs associated for contract engineering services are already appropriated in the planning and public works line item budgets. And so nothing changes as far as what we're trying to do this year or those costs. They stay consistent. This is just a contract that identify the firms to do the work.
Does it change for next year?
Each budget year would be an independent decision of the board as a whole during the budget process. Their rates, though, are the rate sheets. There's a state statute that sets the process you have to go through to get engineering, surveying, and other professional services. That's the process we follow. They provide their qualifications and rate sheets as part of that process.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to execute a master service agreement, for on-call engineering with AMT in Withers and Avenel.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to authorize staff to execute a master service agreement for on-call engineering with the two firms. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item 6C is request for the addition of a Human Resources Administrator position to the fiscal year 2020 budget effective December 1st, 2019. And we're going to hear from our Town Manager, Mark Collins.
Thank you, Mayor. Board. So I'm before you to request an addition of a position to our FY20 budget, a mid-year position at this point. Primary reasons are to assist with regulatory compliance, and I'll get into that a little bit more, and administration of the personnel policy that I'll get into a little bit more. Talking to your strategic policy, we need additional staff time to advance a top priority of the board's in Goal 5, which is to evaluate human resource policies for overtime, insurance selection, employee evaluation, compensation, comparative benefits, and training programs. There's a significant amount of work in that area that over the past year I've been able to evaluate and identify, and it has passed the threshold of a part-time work and just doling it out. It's full-time work right now. And giving you a little bit of background of how that human resource officer position had been handled in the past, it was assigned to the finance director. There's an inherent conflict between someone who's responsible as a finance officer under statute, making fiscal decisions on behalf of the organization, and an HR director that's making personnel and risk-based that may conflict with each other. So that's not there's a natural conflict between those two. So it's not ideal to have your finance director in that role. The town does have a position titled a Human Resource Specialist position. That's where the training and background there is in a payroll benefits position. That's traditionally a finance position that works in conjunction with a trained human resources position. Those are two separate functions, typically. How we had planned to do this and why this is needed in the budget rather than being asked last spring is we've had a retirement. That responsibility was going to be assigned to another position within administration. When the clerk was hired, communication and clerk duties were going to leave a position that was going to free time for HR. With that retirement, that changes that game plan, if you will, for the HR position. The work is still needed there, and as well as the strategic plan and project implementation. So moving forward with an assistant two position, filling that, there's still the HR role that needs to be filled with the town. And I'm handling a lot of that right now, but that can pull a lot of time of mine away from other needs for the community right now. if I had one right now, the main items that I'd want them to work on is, and have them on board in January, February, to be able to work with the consultants on the implementation of the comp and class study into the budget process. At the point we passed 50 employees last year, it triggered requirement under the American with Disability Act, ADA compliance, and it starts a three-year clock to establish a transition plan. Part of that is identifying an ADA coordinator. This position would serve in that role and help us work towards establishing that transition plan moving forward. After a compensation and classification study is completed, I know one thing many of the members have mentioned to me is looking at the employee evaluation process and making sure that, you know, if it's merit or performance-based, that system is set up and staff and supervisors are appropriately trained. That's a significant amount of work that this person will be assigned to. And there's a tremendous amount of process, form, data retention that is responsible to this position that requires a continual presence. And as the organization grows and the compliance with laws increase, that's an increasing time draw from our current positions. That's really being felt right now. There are a lot of bullets that are in the personnel policy about an assigned role of the human resource officer. I provided that in your packet so you can see the nature and type of work this position would be doing on a day-to-day basis in addition to those larger projects, assisting with just day-to-day human resource needs of the organization. And while this position's not in the current budget, in the staffing planning document in the budget, next year there was a plan for a risk management officer. I'm asking for this position in lieu of that future need. We'll hold off on that later, till later, and just look at this position being more of a generalist that can handle a wider variety of that work. The cost for 6 months is approximately $39,500. That includes salary and approximately 5% of that being benefits. The funding would be appropriate at the end of year with the end of year budget amendment, either using accrued salary savings, if that's available, or increased revenues. Otherwise, it would need to be appropriated from fund balance at the end of the year. I'm not asking to fill this position next week. I'm just asking for the authorization to fill it when the finance officer and I are comfortable with the budget and the revenue tracking that it's the right time to do it. At this point, I'm thinking the position will be starting in January, February. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Mark, is that future position for a risk manager, is that anything that an HR person can also handle, or is that really a very separate role?
I think they can handle a lot of what I saw in the risk manager to help with safety and training programs with department. That's a lot of that area is looking at insurance, safety, and training. So if we roll that into this and just trying to get the generalists that can do that and the general HR, that would be ideal.
Okay.
With this, excuse me, with this being a new job or a new classification for us, what department are they going to fall underneath? Administration and under your supervision?
Administration.
Okay.
In the personnel policy, it speaks directly to it, working very closely and providing recommendation to the town manager.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Mr. Collins?
Where are we going to put them?
We'll evaluate available space within this building. I know a lot of the town hall employees are working towards that day of having this space of a growing organization needs. So we'll work through that prior to a start date. That is a tremendous challenge at this point.
Is this something that we can approve with conditions, meaning once you and Butch decide that it's necessary, that you come back to us, even if it's via email or, I don't know, I mean, I don't want to walk you back through the formal process, but I do think we need to know where the money's coming from and how it's all going to shake out before we approve it.
Okay. Well, right now, the money would come from the fund balance if it's not in accrued savings from positions. I can't say exactly how long, like, police department positions will stay open, but I know that each month that goes along, there's an accrued savings in those positions. When we get to about the mid-year, we're past break even and into positive with positions. The IT costs also, that's an unfilled position in the budget right now, has some money that would come into that as well. So at this point, we're close on that with the mid-year, but I want to get a little closer to that just to feel comfortable with where revenues are headed. Right now, they're tracking very, very strong with the growth that we've had. I don't like pulling a trigger on something like that until I'm absolutely sure, but I do want to be able to get that posted, and I know we have limited meetings that'll be pretty busy between now and the new year. As always, I'll stay in communication when that decision's made and the justification that Butch and I use to make that decision, if that suffices.
I guess this is a question for the attorney, but do we have to walk back through the formal process, or is this something that we can approve with conditions now, and they, once they figure it out on exactly where it's going to come from, or decide that they for sure need it, that it could be approved, that they could just give us an update or something via email?
Well, you can approve it with conditions, but it's difficult to go solicit the employee with those conditions. So
Okay.
I think I'd recommend you, if you're inclined to approve it, just approve it as a clean approval, but instruct the manager to keep you apprised of the process.
Is that satisfactory to you? Do you feel okay
Yes.
about that?
So, I appreciate us, putting some focus on this. Our attorney can tell us, but this is the most expensive area. This is the one area that can go badly quickly and cost the town a lot of money. I will say that, I share some of Commissioner Carroll's concerns as far as, lap salary is great, but it's not recurring. That said, I understand if we move the 21 back. I have trusted your budget math thus far, and it's worked out well. So I'm going to trust your budget math on this one. I do think it's a needed position, and I also share the concern about where this person's going to stay, specifically given their job title, and their need in HR not to have other people walking in and out of their office or in and out of their files, and the hallway certainly isn't going to work for the HR director. But outside of that, I have no reservations.
Yeah, in agreement with that, I think it's a position that anybody who owns a business, HR is a big, I don't want to say big pain, but it's a big time eater, and it can be a very big drain on administrative time too. So I think the idea of having our town manager handling HR seems it's the best use of his talents or skills. I think having a position available for somebody who's well trained and well caught up in this is the way to go about things. I think Commissioner Joyner made a good point that certainly you want to make sure you're doing this right, and then at the same point that I agree with you guys that you want to make sure this isn't a general fund paid position, but, I think it's needed nonetheless, so, with that, I'll make a motion to approve, the HR administrative position in the, position classification plan for the fiscal year 2020 budget.
All right, we have a motion to approve the Human Resource Administrator position in the fiscal year 2020 budget. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor?
Thank you.
Okay. Moving into item number 7, other business. Tonight, 7A is an update on town board committee by town board members, and the only one we have is the Wendell Volunteer Fire Department joiner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Fire Department Board met last Thursday in anticipation of receiving our audit, and we are still anticipating that audit as there was a scheduling conflict. The Fire Department's also moving forward on purchase of a new Commissioner, it's not a brush truck. It is a utility truck. That will, you'll have a brush truck now at the new Station 3, which will be at Wendell Falls, and Station 2 at Bethany Church, with a utility truck running EMS calls in the greater downtown area. It'll provide a little bit better coverage. Lots of exciting purchases in the department, and we will meet again next week to go over the audit.
All right, let's just stay with you and go right on into our commissioners' comments.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'm going to do everything I can to remember the things. One, the Harvest Festival, and I've seen lots of folks talk about it. The new layout this year, town staff did an excellent job working with the chamber. I thought the parade route and the new way of doing things was really nice. Everything was set up for the whole day, and you could really see folks all the way up Main Street, all the way down 3rd Street. I kept walking back and forth just to see if all the people in front of me were the only people there, and there was typically twice as many around the corner. Can't thank staff and the chamber, the folks that really got out there and pushed to get it done. The chief's supposed to have worn his pedometer. He had a lot of steps in the middle of a day, but I resubmit that I think that we should make sure everyone wears pedometers during the Harvest Festival. Stephanie walked a mile just with us, so lots of good things going on there. Harvest Festival. That's another thing that I'm supposed to say that is slipping my mind. Thank you for the Harvest Festival. The other event that I'm supposed to mention coming up is going to get caught by someone else moving down the board. I'm sure they know it. The other piece that I wanted to say is that September 26th, Wendell lost one of its native sons. He was a member of our Economic Development Commission. He had spent his life in Wendell. Sandy Jones passed away rather suddenly, certainly too suddenly for most of our likings. And before we leave tonight, Sandy spent a lot of time doing a lot of things around Wendell, and some of them he didn't necessarily care about doing, but he did it because he thought it was a good thing. And certainly being the son of a mayor for 14 years takes its toll, living in town. Sandy liked to have everybody smiling, and I had the chance to be at his funeral and hear more people talk about it. It was a very humbling experience to see that so many people experience the same Sandy that all of us in Wendell have experienced for years. So before we adjourn tonight, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn in Sandy's honor. That's all I have.
Can you make that motion when the time comes to adjourn?
Yeah, I was just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
Continue.
Commissioner Boyette?
Yes, I'd also like to thank the chamber and town staff for an excellent Harvest Festival. I was unable to attend, but my wife and children went, and had an absolute blast. Really enjoyed the layout, of the parade, and commented just how much bigger it felt, how many more vendors there were. And just really liked the layout, and, it just seemed like, everybody there spoke very highly of it, so, not much more to say than what Commissioner Joyner already went over, but, just thanks again, down in Chamber.
Commissioner Myrick?
I was unable to attend the Harvest Festival as well, but I think the Chamber did a fantastic job. I've seen the pictures on Facebook and other social media posts, and they always do a fantastic job. But we're still harvesting at my farm, so when we're done, we're going to have our own festival. But this season has run late, and I'm looking forward to it at the end. But that's all, man.
Commissioner Lutz?
Yeah, I'll echo those. It was a great Harvest Festival. I thought it was well put on. I thought everybody pitched in, and the weather that was ordered that day was perfect. It gave us a break from the heat for a little bit, and I agree. I thought it felt bigger. I thought it felt more big time. It was real good. I enjoyed it. I also want to say I was happy to see the kind of us moving forward with a pedestrian plan or some pedestrian discussion tonight. When I first came to town here, it really bothered me seeing people walk up and down the road, and even on motorized wheelchairs up and down the road right there, that intersection, and that always really bothered me how much that happens. And even today, still seeing families walking down the road with kids and bags of groceries and not having anywhere really safe to walk. So I think I think this town is a very walkable town, and I think just because we move outside the downtown corridor doesn't mean it doesn't still remain a walkable area. Especially with some of the shops that stretch out that way. So I was happy to see this. I look forward to the day people can get groceries and walk home. I mean, I think it's a nice thing to have. So I was happy to see this.
Commissioner Carroll?
I'm sorry, you said
No comment.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Sorry. Real quickly, the Harvest Festival was just a wonderful success. A lot of hard work went into planning and carrying it out. I want to thank the Wendell Chamber of Commerce for this year and many years of Harvest Festivals over the years. They always do such a wonderful job. It brings lots of visitors to Wendell so they can see all the things that we have to offer, and that's very important. Town staff in every department played a role of varying nature, and I appreciate their hard work, so thank you to all of you. There were also numerous volunteers and participants that should also be recognized as well. I mean, people volunteered, everybody kind of pulled together to help. Such a large event takes the work of lots of hands, and it certainly took that, and everybody showed up to help. The wrap-up meeting was held just today, and planning for next year's event has already begun. So, and I think we heard it's going to be October 3rd. So, quick reminder, our very popular trick-or-treat trail is coming up on October 25th. It's a Friday night from 5 to 8 at the Hugh Moody Nature Trail at the Wendell Community Park. Always a fun event. You should definitely dress your kids up and bring them out. It's fun, not scary, just Halloween fun and lots of candy, and that's always a great thing, so please bring your kids and come to that. One last thing, I've mentioned previously that I'm serving on the steering committee that is planning the Wake County Family Justice Center through Interact. And we had a quick update last week, so I wanted to share that with y'all. We met and heard presentations from 3 different work groups on the project of varying housekeeping type issues that I'm not going to bore you with right now. We're in the beginning phases, not the very beginning, but the beginning phases of information gathering and planning, and things are moving along really very well. I'm really excited about it, and I'll give you more updates as some of these plans are confirmed and made public. We're also planning a visit to a few other such centers in some larger counties in the coming months. It's beneficial to moving forward. You don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes other people do things well. Sometimes they've learned along the way, and we want to benefit from their experiences and take advantage of that, and they're gracious and willing to share that. I also received this reminder that I'm just going to pass along to you that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Wake County. The goal is to remember the lives lost, honor survivors, and celebrate that Wake County is a community of hope. This is coming from Interact. They serve many, many, many residents in Wendell. And their work is very, very important to the citizens of Wendell. If anyone is interested in getting involved in that, they're always looking for volunteers and helpers, and I'm happy to guide you and direct you and tell you who you can talk to about that. All right, so Commissioner Joyner, you're on.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we adjourn in honor and memory of Lucius Sanford Jones Jr., or as we all know him, Sandy.
Okay, we have a motion that we're adjourning in honor of Sandy Jones. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.